I know you don't need anyone to tell you how compressors work. However, here is something you might find interesting. There is no real evidence of compressors being available in our real life. We do not in nature hear compressed sounds. We do hear naturally EQ'd sounds. I spoke in my last video that if you are far from a sound source, or let's say there is a wall and the source is behind the wall, you find that the high frequency components get cut. If a source is closer to you, you find that the high frequency components get a boost. You cannot say the same thing about compressors. But there might be one way in which you can actually try to get the sense of how compressed sound sounds without applying a compressor. Alright, so now I'm gonna attempt to show you a process through which probably you'll be able to experience compressor in real world without actually applying a compressor. Take your favorite pair of headphones. Now you might have already done this thing earlier. If you have not done it, you can do it after the video is over. Make sure the volume is an optimal level and record your own voice. It can also be a guitar, it can be a piano, alright? Just make sure it's not a mix, it's one single instrument. Now, once you got that instrument recording on your headphones, crank it up to a certain level where you start hearing the lowest dynamics. I mean the lowest volume in the recording. Now don't do this experiment too long, because if you are cranking up the volume to get the silent most parts at an optimum level, that also means that you are actually pushing the loud parts way louder. That can damage your ears, but you can do it for a very short while. It works. And also remember not to use a pair of monitors. They are not going to allow you to hear the sound the way you hear them through headphones. So once again, wear them back. Right now your volume is up and you are hearing the silent most parts at your optimum listening level. At this moment, if you turn up the volume even the slightest bit, you would notice that the loudest parts you had, which are already being played pretty loud, they no longer get louder. Your ears are designed in such a way they would not recognize it anymore as further loud sounds. Instead, the sounds that are quieter, they start raising and raising and raising. At this moment, what you shall be experiencing would essentially be what a compressor does. However, what you experience through a compressor is not same what the compressor actually does to the audio. It definitely does not just raise the lower volumes, keeping the louder portions as they are. Instead, they take the louder portions down and push the whole thing up. We'll see a little demonstration of using compressors. I'm sure you have seen millions of times on YouTube. You have yourself done it millions of times. But still, to conclude the discussion we are doing, if we don't see it once, it will just feel incomplete. So I'm here at my desk and you can see my desktop. I have separated out a little part of music from the chunk that I have been building up over here. And this is what it sounds like by default. Nothing fancy, a simple reggaeton beat and a simple bass line, and with that a flute that I just converted from MIDI to audio. Make sure to keep the volume in such a level that at your comfortable audible level, only the 70% or above parts of the loudest portions in your audio track should be there. That will really make it easier for you to take better decisions. Anyways, now we're gonna go with a compressor here. I'm gonna go with the Logic's default compressor. You can go with any compressor of your choice. Before we start playing the section of the audio, let's reset our compressor. Auto gain should be at 0, makeup at 0, ratio at 1:1, threshold at 0. That resets the whole compressor. That means you play through it and your compressor does not hear anything. Alright, there's no movement. Now look here, we're gonna come to the graph mode. Alright, I'm doing the graph mode because if you're using Ableton Live or any other audio station, you might have the graph mode as your default mode. Come to the graph mode and put your ratio between 2 and 3. Let's go for 2.5, 2.6. That should be fine. Start turning down the threshold until the point that you see that we are getting gain reduction until this section. Once it crosses this section, please be careful. Once it crosses this section, there should be no more gain reduction. You should ideally do it for the whole audio, but let's see. If you look now, the first portion, that is this section, is getting a dB cut over here, the white line. The second portion is not getting a dB cut, alright? That means it is kind of a good threshold right now. We can go a little lower. Alright, once your threshold is proper, push this up by 3:1, even 4:1 is perfectly fine. Depends what you want to achieve. Do it as per your taste, alright? Look at the gain reduction. So as I told you, the compressor plugin that you might be using, or if you have a hardware compressor, they do not act naturally the way your ear does. By default, it doesn't boost the lower portion of the track, it cuts from the louder portion of the track. So now we're gonna introduce that volume that we lost due to the compression using the makeup gain. You have to ideally see how many dBs you're cutting here. It's a little difficult to see here. The meter mode helps you a little better over here, see? Highest cut goes up to 4 decibels. You're gonna boost up to 4 decibels here. And to see what it exactly did, we could take a bounce in place over here where we would see visually what difference we are finding. If you just notice this section, look at the thickness here, look at the thickness here. The volume has definitely risen. However, if you see, let's say this section, for example, you see there is no significant volume boost. Now it's not too drastic, and that is because of our compressor settings. We could have made it like 8:1. We could have taken the threshold even further down. The more you do aggressively, the more you see the effect. But as long as the philosophy of compressors are concerned, that's what they are. Let me know in the comments down below what you think, and I will see you in the next video where we discuss the philosophy of reverbs.